A young man was stopped on a quiet Los Angeles street and treated like a suspect for simply driving home. The officer behind it, a man used to power and silence, never questioned his actions. But he didn't realize his victim was the son of the city's chief of police, and this time, the system would turn on itself. Stay to see how one father's stand transformed a moment of injustice into a fight for accountability. The night air in Los Angeles was thick with the faint scent of rain on asphalt, and the distant hum of city life drifted over quiet residential streets. Streetlights cast long shadows across cracked sidewalks as Jaden Harper navigated his modest Honda Civic through the sleepy neighborhoods. At 21, he carried himself with the easy confidence of someone who believed the world, though flawed, was mostly fair. The music playing softly in his car helped drown out the exhaustion of a long day at college, and the memory of lighthearted laughter from dinner with friends still lingered like a warm echo. As he approached a major intersection, the glow of traffic lights reflected in his windshield. He checked the rearview mirror, noting the pair of headlights that had been following him for several blocks. Jaden wasn't nervous. In his mind, this was just another car heading home, just like him. When the light turned green, he pressed lightly on the gas. But before he could fully cross, bright red and blue lights erupted behind him. His chest tightened instinctively. Pulling over to the side of the road, he reached for his wallet and driver's license. His father, Chief Leon Harper, had raised him to always stay calm and respectful during traffic stops. Jaden's fingers trembled slightly, not from fear, but from surprise. The police SUV door slammed. Heavy boots echoed against the pavement. A tall white officer, his face partially obscured by the brim of his cap, strode toward Jaden's car with hurried steps. His presence felt unusually intense, his movements sharp and unrelenting. "Step out of the vehicle," the officer ordered, his voice stern and commanding. Jaden hesitated. "Sir, may I ask what this is about?" His words were careful, his tone respectful. "I said step out." The officer's voice cut through the night like a blade. Jaden complied, pushing open the door and stepping out into the cold night air. His phone, still resting on the passenger seat, vibrated softly, an incoming call from his father. He didn't dare reach for it. The officer moved closer, the tension in his posture impossible to ignore. Jaden tried again, his voice calm but firm. "I'm sorry if I did something wrong, but I don't understand." Before he could finish, the officer's hand gripped his shirt collar, yanking him slightly forward. Jaden stumbled, his hands instinctively rising in surrender. His heart raced as confusion and fear crashed together in his chest. "Don't talk back to me," the officer barked. Jaden's mind scrambled. He remembered his father's advice. Stay still, stay quiet, don't give them a reason. But something about the officer's eyes made him realize this wasn't a routine stop. There was no explanation, no citation being written, only an escalating aggression that didn't make sense. The night air grew heavier as the officer's grip tightened. Jaden's thoughts turned to his father. If Dad were here, this wouldn't be happening, he thought. But Leon Harper wasn't here, and in that moment, Jaden felt utterly alone. Behind them, the city kept moving. Cars passed. A dog barked in the distance. But on this quiet street, at this intersection, a young man's faith in fairness began to crack. The fluorescent lights of the precinct flickered faintly as Officer Stephen Marshall strode down the hallway. His boots clicked against the linoleum floor in a steady rhythm, but his jaw was set tight, his mind unsettled. He had done his part, he thought. Another late-night stop, another lesson taught. It was how he justified his actions, discipline on the streets to keep order. But something about the young man's eyes haunted him, though he brushed the thought away before it could settle. In a dim holding cell at the end of the hall, Jaden Harper sat hunched on a metal bench. His hoodie, damp from the rain, clung to his shoulders. He stared at the scuffed floor, his mind replaying the scene over and over. The flashing lights, the commanding voice, the sudden aggression. He had been taught his whole life to trust the badge, to believe the uniform represented protection. But now, doubt spread through him like a slow, chilling fog. An officer passed by the cell, glancing quickly before looking away. There was something unusual about this case, and the staff could sense it. Jaden hadn't resisted. He hadn't raised his voice. Yet he sat here, silent, nursing a sense of betrayal deeper than any physical pain. Meanwhile, miles away, Leon Harper sat in his study, reviewing case reports late into the night. His phone buzzed with a notification. At first, he ignored it, assuming it was another routine update. But the second buzz drew his eyes. It was a message from an unknown number. Attached was a video. He opened it. The sound came first, the sharp command, the young man's strained voice. Then the image filled the screen. His son, pressed against the hood of a car, fear etched across his face. Leon froze. His breath caught in his throat as the weight of the scene sank in. This wasn't just another citizen. This wasn't a stranger. This was Jaden. For a moment, the chief of police was no longer the city's top authority. He was a father, watching his world fracture in the glow of a phone screen. Back at the station, Jaden remained quiet as the hours dragged on. Each tick of the clock deepened the sense that something wasn't right. No paperwork had been filed. No charges were read. Only silence from the officers who passed his cell, avoiding his gaze. And Officer Marshall? He stood outside, staring at the night sky as a growing unease began to settle in his chest. He didn't know the boy's name, not yet, but soon he would. Leon Harper stepped into the precinct, his presence alone cutting through the low murmur of conversations. Officers froze mid-sentence, their eyes darting to him with a mix of respect and unease. He didn't acknowledge them. His focus was locked on one thing, the holding cells at the end of the hall. Inside, Jaden sat on a cold bench, his head bowed, fingers loosely clasped. When the cell door opened, he looked up, his expression weary yet steady. For a moment, father and son exchanged a silent glance, one filled with unspoken questions and a heavy understanding. Leon stepped closer, lowering his voice. "Did they tell you why?" Jaden shook his head. "No charges. No explanation." Leon's jaw tensed. He turned sharply to the young officer nearby. "Bring in Marshall." Minutes later, Officer Stephen Marshall entered the room. The confidence in his stride faltered as his gaze met Leon's. The chief's eyes were calm but unyielding, like a storm contained behind glass. "Do you know who you stopped last night?" Leon asked evenly. Marshall's throat tightened. "A driver. He wasn't cooperative." Leon's voice dropped lower, sharper. "That driver is my son." The words hung in the air like a blade. Marshall's composure cracked. His breath quickened as the weight of his actions settled. Meanwhile, outside the room, the video had already begun spreading across social media. The department's staff whispered as notifications lit up their phones. The public was watching now, and Leon knew this was no longer just a family matter. It was the beginning of something much bigger. The press room was packed, the air heavy with anticipation. Cameras pointed forward like an army of watchful eyes. Reporters whispered as Chief Leon Harper stepped to the podium, his face calm, but his eyes carrying a storm. This wasn't the man they usually saw giving statements. This was a father standing at the edge of a line he never thought he'd cross. Behind him, Jaden stood quietly, the faint marks on his face barely visible under the soft lights. He kept his head high, though the weight of the past 24 hours was clear in his posture. Leon gripped the edges of the podium, his voice steady. "Last night, a young man was stopped by one of our officers. What should have been routine became unacceptable. That young man was my son." The room fell silent, a wave of shock rippling through the crowd. "For years, I've asked this city to trust us. But trust is earned, not demanded. What happened was wrong, and there will be accountability." He paused just long enough for the words to sink in. "Officer Stephen Marshall has been removed from duty and taken into custody. A full investigation is underway." Outside the precinct, voices were rising. People had gathered with signs, their chants growing louder, carried on the night air. Jaden looked out the window at the crowd, his chest tightening, not with fear this time, but with a quiet sense of hope. Leon stepped down from the podium, passing the cameras without a glance. He didn't need to say more. The message was clear. This was no longer just about one family. It was about a city demanding change.